Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Select Board meeting Wednesday, January 22nd at 6 p.m. in the meeting room, Seekonk Town Hall, 100 Peck Street. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20F requires any person recording must notify chairman at the beginning of the meeting. Is anybody else recording? Seeing nobody, all Select Board meetings are recorded via audio and video and are broadcast live on Seekonk Channel 15. I'd like to call a regular meeting to order at 6 p.m. Pledge of allegiance, a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Somebody read the board and committee openings, please.
Okay, I'll take this. Volunteers are needed on the Board of Registrars, one at Board of Selectmen appointment, Capital Improvement Committee, 3 Board of Selectmen appointments, 2 moderator appointments, Commission on Disability, 5 to 13 Board of Selectmen appointments, Cultural Council, 1 Board of Selectmen appointment, Economic Development Committee, 5 Board of Selectmen appointments, Energy Committee, 4 board appointments, Historical Commission, 2 board appointments, Parks and Rec, 1 board appointment, Recycling Committee, 2 board appointments, and Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 alternate.
Thank you. Priority matters. Considered the annual designation of Andrea Russo as Animal Control Officer per Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 151. Can I get a motion? Hi, come on up. Come on up, everybody. Want to do these all at once or one at a time?
I think we have to do them one at a time. So
Do it to it.
I'll make a motion for the annual designation for Andrea Russo as the Animal Control Officer per Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 151.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Unanimous. And for the record, Mr. Healy is not with us tonight. Okay, so consider the annual designation of Jessica Blake as Assistant Animal Control Officer per Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 151.
Okay, I'll make a motion for the annual designation of Jessica Blake as the Assistant Animal Control Officer per Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 151.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Consider the annual designation of Ashley Lawrence as Assistant Animal Control Officer per Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 151.
I'll make a motion for the annual designation of Ashley Lawrence as Assistant Animal Control Officer per Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 151.
Second.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second. Any questions?
I have, this document, is it going to get updated? Because it says Nicole Ferrara. It doesn't say Ashley Lawrence.
Yeah, so this might have been the, do you know, is this what we updated, or was this the old one?
To your office, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so we'll update that. It
Okay.
might have been
Let's see it.
the old one.
Okay.
Did you see that, Andrea, the front page here? Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we have consider accepting the Animal Control Officer's warrant. Jessica, don't leave us yet.
In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 140, as amended and foregoing warrant, I, Ashley Lawrence, for Andrea Russo, hereby make due return of my doings in compliance therewith as follows. Number of dogs for the period of April 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Caught 32 plus 1, 33. 1 prior to 4/1/24. Confined 33. Adopted 5, claimed 25. DOA claim 0, euthanized 1, in shelter 2, transferred 0 for a total of 33. Number of cats for the period of April 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. caught 78 plus 10 for 88, 10 prior to 4/1/24. Confined 75, adopted 42, died 2, claimed 6, DOA 1, DOA hit by car 12, euthanized 2, in shelter 17, in foster 0, TRX 0, release 6, 75. To the best of my knowledge and belief, all unlicensed dogs in said town of Seekonk have been caught, confined, killed, or adopted, and complaints have been made against the following named persons under the provisions of MGL Chapter 140 as amended. Tickets written from April 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024 for non-criminal offenses for failure to license, 19 for a total of $950, dog at large first offense, 15 for $375, dog at large second offense, 11 for $440, failure to vaccinate against rabies, 4 for $400, animal and vehicle for the weather, 0 for $0. Total tickets, 49, for a total of $2,165. Total number of dogs licensed from April 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Total licenses issued, 366. And so far, as I have, knowledge complaints have been entered against all persons who have failed to comply with said provisions.
Very good, but I have a question. And I may not be happy about asking this one, but whatever. Last time I asked one, I didn't want to know. What is TRX?
Transferred.
TRX is transferred? Okay. That's not so bad. Okay, thanks. Okay, I'll need a motion, please, to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the animal control officer's warrant as presented.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Community speaks. Do we have anybody out in our audience from the community who would like to say something, ask something, tell me something? No? Good. Okay. General business, license hearing. Consider the request from John Barboza for a Class 2 motor vehicle license to sell secondhand vehicles at East Bay Motors, 190 Taunton Avenue. Hi. How are you? Are you John Barboza? I am. Excellent. Okay, let's see. This is a license hearing. Everything's up to date because we have everything. The reason this license is here and wasn't in the other pack is because it's a license, a newer license that came in, yeah. So that's why. So can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Class 2 motor vehicle license to sell secondhand vehicles at East Bay Motors, 190 Taunton Ave.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Barboza, seeing he's here? Thank you for coming in, sir.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We didn't vote yet, did we?
What's that?
We didn't vote yet, did we?
No, we haven't voted yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, so you're set.
That's all right. No. I just thanking you for coming in.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Any questions for Mr. Barboza? Anybody? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, unanimous.
Sounds a good vote.
Thank you, sir.
Now
Good
you
luck
can
to you.
You can appreciate it.
Okay, joint meeting with the Department of Public Works Building Committee. Discussion with the owner's project manager regarding next steps for the project. Come on down. Nobody gets to sit in the audience. Come on down. What's that?
7 on the building committee.
5.
All right.
Yeah, it was the fourth one, and
So they should just open it up because you're on it.
Yeah, there's a quorum.
well, the-
Yeah, just in case, just to be safe. All right. Yeah.
make a motion, John, to open your meeting at 6:10.
Make a motion to open the DPW Building Committee meeting with the joint board of selectmen at 6:10. Second. All in favor?
Aye. Okay. Okay, that makes it official. Okay, so first of all, let's introduce ourselves for the record, please.
Ed Monaghan, head mechanic, DPW.
No, you're a member of
Oh,
the
member of the board
committee.
and head mechanic.
Not today, you're not.
Not today.
Not right now.
Dan Tavares, principal with CGA Project Management. We were the project managers on the DPW project, also a town resident.
Mary Beth Carney, CGA Project Management, Assistant OPM.
David Roll, DPW Superintendent.
And John Posey, member of the DPW building committee.
Thank you. Mr. Tavares, do you have something for us?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess we've been doing a little bit of research and homework and things of that nature. I wasn't 100% sure what you needed for this evening. Like, if I thought it was more or less just, hey, let's check in, let's see what possible next steps might be, and we're happy to be assisting in any way that we can.
So I just asked CGA to be part of it since they served as the OPM, just to be a resource for this discussion, just in case either the building committee or the board had any specific questions as it related to the property that we had put forth that failed at town meeting and on the ballot. Outside of that, I think that's really all they're here for.
Yeah, and we're happy to come back again if we receive some feedback tonight that you'd like us to work closely with Dave and the building committee and Sean as well to do any research or any background that you'd like us to do to come back to help this board with their, future decision-making.
Good. I think also that we set this up because we don't want the town to think that, or the employees of DPW to think that just because we understand it was turned down, and I think we're pretty well versed on why it was turned down, but we don't want them to think that was it, that we've forgotten about the whole thing. So knowing that the OPM and associates and the committee are still trying to work on doing something, okay? So that is one of the reasons we had asked to have this too. We don't want to dissolve the committee per se yet, even though it's kind of one of those things that is kind of, if something doesn't come up, we're not going to meet because right now there isn't much to meet for. But we're going to try to see if there's a way to step back and figure out what we can do again. And it's nice to hear that you're amenable to that. So if any of the members have anything they'd like to say or ask, please, I don't have to be the only one that talks around here.
Well, do you have any suggestions right now as to what the next steps could be?
Yes, I mean, that's what we've been thinking about in terms of what could be a logical next step for this board to consider. Working closely, again, with Dave and Town Administrator Kadim in the building committee, in terms of what could happen. So we think a few things could happen, and we've already started to do this. We started to take a look at the current program along as it related. We took a little step back and took a look at the feasibility study because we heard, concerns at the town meeting in terms of, well, how did we get from where it was to where we ended? And there's a lot of reasons why that happened. Starting with the program, obviously starting with the site cost itself, that really drove the cost up. Things that weren't captured in the original study, but we learned through this effort, year-long effort of doing a more in-depth feasibility study, site investigation, programming, again, working very close with DPW to confirm their their programs and what their future was. I'm sorry?
Programmatic needs.
Yeah. So we think a few things could happen, right? So I looked at this as like a two-step thing. So the first thing is take another look at the programs, confirming exactly what we just said. Let's reconfirm the programs. Let's reconfirm what their future needs may be to anticipate. Likewise, with any of the outbuildings, several of the outbuildings that were included in the final design and final costing and pricing by the contractor were not in the original. So, and I know there was conversation here at this board in terms of, well, at one point, we were considering, do you split the site? Do you have your same services with, fueling station and salt shed? I mean, all of these things should be looked at. We also think that researching, because one of the other things that came up at town meeting that I recall was that, it was difficult to explain to the town why it was costing so much as it compares to other projects, similar projects that have taken place in Commonwealth, right? So I think a little bit of research on that end of it as well. Maybe contacting some of the firms that have been involved, or towns and cities that have been involved in DPW projects over the last 5 years, let's say, because a lot of data was pre-COVID, and anybody that was doing something pre-COVID was estimating what they think the projects were going to cost. Who knows if those projects actually went through? It'd be good to know, like, hey, pre-COVID, this is what they were thinking it was going to be, this is where it ended. And that's just more for information. So that way, at the next town meeting, whenever it's being requested, we'll have more supporting data to help explain to the taxpayers, what other towns are doing. Are they building garages? How large of a garage? What kind of program? Things of that nature. So I think a little bit of evaluation on that. And we've been discussing this with Dave and others as well, is maybe consult with a DPW experienced vendor, someone that has done someone that has done a lot of DPW projects, to have them evaluate the current design, have them take a look at, what we had all done collectively as a project, to see if they have any feedback, any suggestions, any alternatives to what could be done differently moving forward. So at least you can get a little bit more information from some entity that has performed, that has, designed or constructed many, many more DPW projects. And then in the future, you'll need to basically start this process over again once it becomes real again. Like if and I think this stuff should be happening, these tasks should be happening now without having to restart the whole process over again. Let's do a little recon, let's get a little bit more information, let's come back and talk through some of these things with you folks and others. But in the future, again, this whole process will have to start over. You'll have to rehire your OPM, rehire your architect, and go through that entire process. Maybe a lot of the information that was able to be developed in this effort could be reused. There's a lot of good information in these documents. Or you may be just starting all over again. Site selection is another thing. If you're considering another site, we're hearing that there may be another site that could be considered, and I think that's if that's a possibility, then that should be explored as well. That should be investigated. That should be, there should be a comprehensive analysis of what's going on out there. So, or if you're going to continue to keep it at the current site, then, I think we know what we're going to get there. It's pretty much going to be the same unless something changes out there. And then further down the road, I think it would be very important to really look at how we can improve on community outreach, what avenues we have. I know TV9, I don't think that's still squared away yet, right?
Yes, it is.
It is now, okay.
Yeah, you're on it.
All right.
Smile. You're on camera.
Well, that is fantastic news. Because I know a lot of people watch that, they get a lot of their information from that. We only have a monthly paper, so it's, sometimes it's old news before it becomes new news. But I think, making an effort on that end of it would be great. Perhaps, and this is more of a bigger ask, is like unifying the town a little bit. We know that there are other, committees and boards that are looking, and other groups in town that are looking to do something as well. It would be nice to get a general understanding of what that looks like, what that timeline looks like. How does that fall into the timeline for building a new DPW facility? So that way we can be working more together, supporting each other, but having a better plan in terms of how can we achieve all of those items? We know the town has needs. It happens. It's Seekonk is no different than any other town. And I think we've been kicking the can down the road on a lot of these projects for quite some time, especially DPW. But you create this priority list. You identify what's our priorities, and knowing that we have other things to deal with, other projects, capital projects to deal with, I think we can find some way to, work together with various committees and boards. So that's, I think that's pretty much all the high-level stuff that we've been thinking about, as you do go forward. Open to anything, any questions?
Okay.
And I like the suggestions that you made, and especially the immediate ones. I mean, we had a position that we can move forward with those. I don't know if there was money left in the budget to be able to hire or get a review done by,
There isn't, but I don't know how much that review would really be. It's probably short money, so
Okay.
we might be able to find it in the operational budget.
okay.
But the capital, the allotment that was funded, that was appropriated by town meeting has been spent.
It's done, okay.
I have a question maybe regarding funding. Would it be appropriate for myself to say to reach out to an engineering firm that has the experience with these, to ask them what it would cost to do an independent study of that program?
Yeah, we would need to know what they're gonna charge, because if not, we might have to get either 3 written quotes or go out to bid on, depending on where
And
they're
then the
at.
funding source would have to be appropriated through this body right here.
Correct. Yeah.
As part of the budget perhaps too, depending on the dollar amount?
But it depends on the timing, right? So, I mean, if we're in the fiscal year, we might be able to find it within the operating budget and just allocate it and highlight it to the board. If it's for FY '26, then we would just need to budget for it.
And in our conversations we've had, I think it would be, from my perspective, to keep this moving forward, as Michelle has mentioned, it would be good to have an outside independent review, looking at the program, looking at the elements we have, making sure that we can prioritize them, that helps the two. If it comes down to the bottom line of how much money we're spending, there's a lot of opposition to, say, the covered storage component of the facility. I think it would be smart to plan for those things, at least on the layout of a site plan, wherever the site may be. You have a site plan, you address the needs of the different components that may happen at a later date too, and incorporate it all on the site so that it all fit, and not leave it out. And then, at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to what the tax base are willing to go for. I think, from my feedback from people, there's a very good understanding that there's a need. People have been to the building, see the video, and then it comes down to how much money are we willing to spend, and yes, the building, and the whole program that goes with it. We've been in a retrofit building. We're trying to do something here to make it better. We just had a request from the police department to start servicing the vehicles with our mechanics. We need a lift. And we've had conversations with Mr. Green on that. That's in the works. But again, whatever we're doing right now, we're still trying to do it as that particular lift is usable. It's not just going to be at the old site, invest the money. Now you got the old site, we're spending money on it. We don't want to waste the taxpayers' dollars right now either. I think we're trying to do just to improve our day-to-day right now. But I think that would be a good stepping stone for us. Have an outside look at it. They can guide us a little bit. Maybe they see something in there saying you can, cut back on this. I don't know so much on the end. I think that'd be good study.
Are you good?
No.
No? Please.
So I think the suggestion of doing some studies is worthwhile, right? I mean, just if anything, to tee it up for the next building committee. I think the most important thing we need to be doing is getting this project continuing on to, if we need to start talking about putting together funding for a new building committee, sooner rather than later. I think the points that you've made is, start with the site, right? I mean, the site, there's plenty to argue about the site, hindsight being 20/20, but at the end of the day, that was $10 million of the project, right? So do you reconfigure? Do you change the size of the building? I mean, we've heard all of it, right? $40 million, right, $40 million is just outsized for the town's taste right now. We understand what it was about. That was the do it once and be done with it right, okay? That's not the Seekonk way. Look at the senior center. So,
Picking on my senior center?
no, not on your senior center, on the
Just
resident
asking.
senior center. I paid for it twice. So, but at the end of the day, we've got to figure out how we're going to, if we're going to be married to that site, let's do it. If we're not married to the site, and I think that's going to be the big what if before you throw a building committee together is, are we going there? Or, I've had conversations with multiple people of, well, there's plenty of places or other opportunities down in the south end of town. Sure, and that has operational issues, right? So if we're really married to this site in this location, then we're going to have to reconfigure the size of the building so that it fits the appetite of the residents. It's the only way I see it. So I think we need to get the resources and the funding. We can play with the budget and the engineering and do some of the other little things, but that's not moving the needle. We need to move the needle in this building. This building is a high priority for the town. And it doesn't get done unless we get a warrant article put on the Springtown warrant, establishing a building committee all over again and getting them to work so that we can have something ready to go. If it's not for the upcoming fall town meeting, a year from Springtown meeting. But every day is a wasted day for the guys in DPW, for the residents that we have, because we're going to have some other issues as building continues to fail and these guys continue to use duct tape, super glue, and bubble gum to keep it together, right? And it will only last for so much longer. So I think it's just my 2 cents on where this process needs to go.
Ms. Bizarro?
I agree with Justin. History repeats itself with this town. Every time you try to do it right, they vote it down, then we piecemeal it, and it's not right. Next door, the fire station, I've always said, it was supposed to be a bigger building, 4 bays for the fire department, and here we are, cutting down walls in the jail cells to make offices. We're just running out of room every time they try to do it. Nope. The senior center's the biggest thing. Paid more than quadruple the money when it could have cost us $100,000 to do the whole project. So we all understand DPW is a POS. There's not much more you can do to it. And it's a very high priority, so we got to keep it going.
I agree, we can keep it going, but I still think that you can still do the review, because I don't want to be here in another year or wherever it takes to get another design and come to the same problem without knowing if we can get a review done and keep moving forward. I agree, we need to keep moving forward, but so I think you need to do both.
I don't disagree.
Yep.
I'm just waiting for somebody else to say something. Everybody good?
Can I just, so.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So I guess I'm of the opposite opinion. I think before we do all these reviews, because quite frankly, I think the review is just going to show us what we need to do. So I think the review is, in my mind, is just a waste of money to just further justify what we already know. We know our programs. We know the needs that we have. I think we need to, like Selectman Zara said, we need to do it the opposite way. He said the wrong way. I'll say the opposite way. Usually, when you do a project, you build it based on the needs and the programming to identify what those needs are, and I think we did a very good job of that. I think what we now need to know is what's the budget, and we just have to figure out that this is the budget we're able to work with, and then work backwards from that budget number and say, okay, if it's 20 million, if it's 15 million, if it's 10 million, that's really what's going to dictate, the options that we have. Because a smaller building is still going to, in the site that we have, is still going to drive about a $10 million site remediation, right? So that's, if we only have 10 million or 15 million, that site is not even optimal. If it's $10 million, then we need to look at other parcels that we have, which is obviously going to carry some carrying costs associated with either purchasing property, and then obviously not meeting all the programming needs that we have. So I think that's really where we need to be, because if we're truly looking at where DPW is now, how it's growing, how the town is growing, all the additional properties that we're taking on, and the requirements that we have internally, plus all the other programming enhancements that we're doing in terms of mechanics and saving the town money by doing in-house services versus going out-house, is really driving our needs and the cost associated with everything that we need to do. So if we truly show that, we're back to where we are. We're at a $30 to $40 million project. If we kick it down for another 2 years, what are we looking at, another 5%?
Yeah, 5%.
Escalation cost on that, so we're higher. So while I don't disagree reviewing and doing that review, it's just going to show us, and without essentially, I think town meeting was was an interesting town meeting in the sense that, you know, we need to justify more of our spending, where in the past there was trust with, you know, what was put forward by both the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. Now it's almost trust with verification, so you've got to do more due diligence to be able to provide that. But with that comes additional costs associated with it. It's, you know, over $1.5 million that we have invested. That doesn't include the feasibility, because I think, I don't recall how much the feasibility study was.
It was 95,000.
Yeah, it was about 100,000 or something like that. So, you know, we're already at, you know, $1.6 million, and then now we're going back trying to figure out where we're going to be. And I think before we do that, we really need to figure out, and I'm not sure how we gauge the appetite, but we just need to know what that dollar amount is, the bottom line, so that we can kind of back into that number.
Yeah, but at the end of the day here, you're going to have varying opinions around the table.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, everybody's going to come up with a different opinion. And whether you're going to range from 30 million or 40 million or 20 million, like, right, and I would think most of everybody at the table knows you want to put a $20 million DPW project out there, you're going to be better off going to get a shed from Home Depot, you know, because that's what you're going to be left with for, in a proverbial sense. But you're probably looking at a project that's going to be reasonably, it's still not fully meeting the needs, understanding that, right? But you're probably looking at something that's going to be in the $25 to $30 million range. And you're going to end up, because of this setback, it is good. People are going to get shocked when they're going to be like, well, what the heck happened to this project? But if that's the dollar total residents want to pay, well, guess what? That comes with it associated costs in terms of what you're going to get for your money. Because as you just said, the cost escalation has not stopped just because we voted it down. We don't get to negotiate the costs on everything just because it got voted down. The costs still go up, whether we like it or not. This is not trying to buy a house and negotiate with somebody else. It is still going up. Shooting it down only shot ourselves in the foot. So I think you determine what that price is. If 40 million was too high, then you come back at it and you say, okay, well, let's do this for 30, or let's do it for 25 and build it to there. But you can sit here and put together 5 other committees and come up with what that budget number is, but.
No, I
be
just think we
forever.
need a consensus on what we feel would be acceptable at town meeting with, I know there's no hard number to say, okay, this is the number, this is, you know, what we have an agreement in, pre-agreement going into town meeting. I understand we can't get that, but if we're gonna do all this other stuff, we're just spending more money, and we could be at the same place where we don't get the support at town meeting if it's a $30 million building, so.
That can happen no matter what, though. Like, it doesn't, we can say we're gonna only do 20 million, and we're gonna come back, and at that point in time, who knows what has happened before that, whether we've had to approve stuff for the schools or whatever, and they come back and say, nope, we're not spending 20 million either. So we're at a losing game, I think, no matter what we do. And if we go and say, well, we're only gonna spend $20 million, then what I think your point was, we're gonna be back to a building that's not adequate. And we're back to every other project we've ever done, where it's too small and inadequate before they even move in.
Yep.
So.
But I think that's where we're at now.
I know. Unfortunately, it is. I don't
At the
know
end of
what
the
to
day,
say.
we're going to spend 30 million on a new building anyway, and in 5 or 10 years, we're going to be asking for an addition. So it doesn't make,
Which will be another 10 or 15 million
Right.
at the senior center.
And then,
So-
and here you go, you've paid double for the building before you know it.
I mean, in
So-
a couple of meetings, we're gonna have a discussion with the library, and we're gonna see costs that are pretty close to a new building that are just solely a renovation.
Yep.
Solely a renovation, and
That was said back then too, but, people didn't want to hear that either, so. But this is what happens, I appreciate it, it's tax dollars, it's stuff that hits us all. But we have to, those that are closest to these projects understand what happens when you shoot these things down. We're not out there putting in, gold faucets and, and the nicest marble toilets and stuff like that. We're just trying to get a reasonable bathroom for DPW guys to, be able to change in and out of their gear, have our equipment that we spend millions of dollars in protected and all that. And this is what it's cost.
so can
Yeah,
I just ask in terms of direction, I guess, from this board? Because I think it might be helpful for us in terms of trying to understand a review, is identifying the location. So can we assume that the current location that was proposed is off the table? Just because there's a $10 million price tag on just for remediation?
It's possible, because you could buy a piece of property cheaper, maybe, potentially.
I think the question, I think that really boils down to where's the location on the property, right? It's a cost issue, right? Because property of the size of the acreage that you currently have now, you're probably going to be able to buy that in a $3, $4, $5 million, but you don't know what that remediation looks like, right? It's probably even more, be honest, because if it's that big, you're probably looking at, well, what, asphalt plant, that property went for what, 5 to 8 million, wasn't it? 5 million?
5 million.
Right? And that's not a big piece of property, and that's about what they're looking for.
And you might want it to be centrally located, because you don't want DPW having to travel all the way from the south end or the north end.
Yep.
You want it to be able to be kind of split.
Well, actually, the committee looked at that, because we know, and maybe other people don't know, you have to build a town building on town-owned land. And we did look at town-owned land, and of course, the land that we looked at is town-owned already, so we didn't have to buy that. But we looked in the center of town, somewhere in the general vicinity, to buy land so we could put this in. And I mean, you can't look back on years before when we had the opportunity to buy land, and we didn't. That's past. But there are projects coming up in this town, and the town people have to realize that there are projects that need to be done. I mean, we have finished some, but there's still, and how do you reach out to people and say, what are you willing to pay for? I mean, or is there any way to get some money for building projects, which, I mean, is looked at all the time, and nobody's forthcoming with millions of dollars to build a project. It's tough. It's tough. So, yes, we need a new DPW. Yes, we need space for dispatch. Yes, we need possibly more space in the schools, but this all has to be paid for. It has to, what are we going to do first? We can't keep neglecting things. Things, DPW has been pushed around for so many years that, I mean, I don't know how much longer that.
And then it becomes an emergency. So it's already way past its lifetime.
Well, it is, but, I mean, these projects have to be done. If they're done today, they're this amount, and if you push it off again 5, 6, 10 years down the road, it's gonna be double. I mean, and this isn't even, I mean, COVID did a lot. I mean, even on the senior center project, COVID killed us. But, I mean, that is done right now, but other projects, it just keeps, what did you say, 5% inflation?
Pretty much, yeah, 5% escalation
But-
per annum. Right now, that's what's trending.
I know, it's just, I know it was a lot of money. I mean, we cut back, and we ripped things apart, and we combined things and pushed things over. I mean, we all thought it was the best location because the landfill is there, the garage is right there, the town owns that property, and
Mr. Tavares, I have a quick, I'm sorry.
that's all right, go ahead.
I have a quick question for you, because I wasn't involved in following the whole process all the way through. The location of the building itself that was proposed, was that the best location for that building, or given where some of the landfill and how it?
We did
where you
do that.
found and all that?
The
Is it-
committee
was there
looked at
a different
that.
space to that?
Yeah,
So
Committee looked at that.
the location where it ended up was the location that was identified during the feasibility study. During the original feasibility study, they explored that parcel that was basically unbuilt on, like it was just wooded, assuming that that area would be more suitable for constructing a facility, a building. And knowing there was an general understanding that there was, buried trash in the more of the larger area of what the landfill is. So I think we continued in that area, but we were working with more information, better information, and trying our best to minimize the impact that we have on the trash removal. So we know that, there is at least $7.5–8 million direct cost associated with the removal of the trash, and another few $1 million associated with the the removal of the unsuitable soil. So there really wasn't any other area on that property that we could have explored, because everything else seemed to be
unsuitable.
unsuitable.
Okay.
So it seemed to be the most appropriate. Nobody knew really what the, I think when the study was originally done, it was more focused on the trash and some geotech information, but not to the extent that we ended up doing with the project when we were all involved. So it's a tough site. It's, in my opinion, it's not a great site. It's not a great site to build on for this project. I think this is just my opinion, that you're spending upwards of 10 million, if not more, and you get zero value for it.
Right.
The only value would be is that you have now created you kept your property and you created an opportunity, to build something on it for the future, So I guess there's a value in that, but it comes at a cost. And as you're all mentioning, it's like if you do anything less than what was presented, it's a compromise, right? Whether it's something's going to get eliminated, something's going to get reduced, or you're splitting services. I mean, there's a compromise in their operations. And I think as others have mentioned, we followed a very systematic, methodical, appropriate approach that is typical of all projects that we've ever been involved in, whether I was an architect or whether or not I was an OPM. It is how you do it. You build it. You have to have checks and balances along the way. But once we started seeing the price estimates, the cost estimates coming in higher, everyone had to roll up their sleeves. We knew that the numbers were not going to be acceptable. But in the end, it was still too much. It was the appropriate solution and the appropriate cost based on the information that we had at that time, with the estimates, knowing more about the site itself. But in my opinion right now, if there is another piece of property in town or something that you're exploring or something that you could be exploring or something that may be on the table, you might want to consider that before spending really any energy on trying to do anything there, because nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
The site's the site, so.
So that's got, then you're really going back to Mr. Kadim's point. I mean, we belabored the operational piece and the benefits of having the operational location. That's your compromise. You're going to end up having to give that up.
What about Firefly, right across the street?
I would strongly not recommend using that, because I think that property in its own, has its own conservation concerns by putting a DPW there and what their needs. But secondly, it's also a piece of prime property smack in the middle of town that has other potential commercial as well as town use opportunities there. All due respect, it's not the right location for DPW.
But didn't we
In my
also,
opinion.
at
In my opinion.
at one discussion, we said the ground where we wanted to put the DPW at the landfill, it's probably the same, it's just across the street. It's not like it's an extensive amount. Yeah, granted, we won't have the trash, but it'll be the same as the soil across the street. So there's still, well, there's always costs for preparing the land, but, I mean, it's going to be, except for the trash, it's probably going to be the same across the street.
But the trash was the biggest amount of that soil removal.
Yes.
So,
I think Firefly would be a good spot. Conservation, obviously, would be a concern, but would have to be looked at, let me just say that.
Right.
It's right center location, it's same street, basically, that they're on now. So,
Okay, thank you very much for coming in. We know your opinion. Can I get your minutes eventually when they're done, please? Because they'll have all his suggestions on it. And then we are not going to make a decision right this second, so we're going to probably have more discussions and keep moving. We're going to keep moving. It's not the end. Not the end. John?
Motion to adjourn.
At 6:44 PM.
Second that. Motion made, seconded. All in favor?
Unanimous. Thank you very much, and I'm sure we will be reading comments of people out in the Seekonk universe that'll tell us exactly what they think.
That was my article. I think you bumped it because you said.
Okay, joint meeting with the school committee, discussion of school committee ad hoc, school department ad hoc committee and infrastructure.
Did find out.
This is on the agenda tonight. We are not going to have a joint meeting only because the school committee does not have a majority of their members. But we do have people here that will answer questions should the board have questions to answer. We have, step right up, we have the superintendent Kidwell right here with us today. We have two members from, well, you guys come up and introduce yourself. So go from left to right. My left, my right.
I'm Lisa Rizzo, I'm on the school committee.
Okay.
Hey, Rebecca Kidwell, Superintendent of Schools.
Ryan McGee, School Business Manager.
Kyle Junkett, School Committee.
Okay, like I said, this isn't actually a joint meeting, but once we found out that the school committee could not get a majority, they did agree to come in and answer any questions that we would have. And was a discussion which a couple weeks ago, we were at the school committee meeting, and this board received information on possibly putting together an ad hoc committee for the infrastructure of the schools, because the schools are looking at their population now and in the future, and how they can help with that, with the population of their schools, to see, you know, what can be done. And again, this has to do with the improvement, the capital improvement of town buildings. So, with that in mind, hopefully everybody got a chance to review the information that we received that's dated October 3rd, 2028, that had to do with the ad hoc committee on the schools. And this was prior to the addition, right?
2018, not 2028. You said 2018?
What did I say?
You said 28, but it was 2018,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
It's 2018, whatever I said. And at the end of this, it was a 10-classroom addition onto Aiken School, which has happened. But that hasn't eliminated all of the crowding, and of course, the population of Seekonk is going up, so the school population is going up. So this committee was said to be going forward, not forward. Discussion, making the ad hoc committee concerning the infrastructure of the school and possibly whatever could happen. I don't know what the members here think about an ad hoc committee. I don't know, somebody's going to speak up besides me.
So I went back to the file cabinet and dragged this out from 2018 when they had 11-member ad hoc committee. They said the 10 classroom at Aiken School was the one and done. That's all we need. They looked extensively at North School, Pleasant, moving admin building out of Hurley into the senior center, into school. They looked at everything. We built the 10 classrooms, and it seems like not much has changed. They're not even using the 10 classrooms for what it is, well, what they said they needed. So I don't know. We've been down this road, and it just seems like it's never enough. So I'm not sure. I know you were not involved then. They had a very extensive committee that looked at all the buildings that you guys currently own and what they can do, and they said 10 classrooms should settle the future of Seekonk for a long time. It's always been on a couple people's agenda to build a new school. They went through renovations back in 2002, and then in 98 they did renovations. So I'm not sure what, I know we have a emergency with the Hurley School with the heating system, but yeah, I dug this out for you guys to look at the past history, and because there's been members in the audience said, look at the schools, look at the other schools, North and Pleasant, and those 11 members went through that whole school. I mean, I don't know how much more you can look at the old schools and figure it out, but, so I'm not sure what anyone else is proposing, or,
So this report was from 2018, which was good, and I read through it, and you're right, it does say in there 10 classrooms and was make it sufficient for going forward.
very long time.
But there was also a presentation done to the quad board in the fall of 2023. which was done by, I don't know if it was a feasibility study by a contractor, which is even newer than this 2018. So if we've just recently had something done that's gone through, and I remember them listing priority needs, they did like a priority 1, 2, 3, they had phases, they looked at every school. I mean, I think that's the list we should be working from unless something has changed since then. So, I mean, I see you have a paper here outlining capital improvements from fiscal year 2025 town meeting we just had, going up to fiscal year 27. And we're looking at roughly $27 million of capital improvement items. To me, that's a large nut right there, especially considering how we just had a conversation about the DPW and how that is a top priority. So,
Don't scare us like that, chief.
Right.
Thank you.
so I'm kind of in the same boat as Chris. I just think that, you know, if there's an emergency, then we need to fix it. I am one of, and I've always preached to maintain buildings. I have been saying that right along, but, you know, we really do need to stop prioritizing things, and we can't keep coming back with these kinds of numbers. We're never going to get a DPW.
I guess I'm
so.
slightly confused, because my understanding, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the theory behind the ad hoc committee was to address the immediate concern, which is the heating issue at Hurley. I know that there's several concerns that have been talked about over the past couple of years, but the heat issue has been something that's been getting juggled for a while, and there hasn't really been a solution brought up. There's been I think there was, some thoughts last year about potentially going towards a new build by submitting, a project to the state, and potentially that project could finish before the heat would have to be repaired, which, again, I don't want to go into the past of that stuff, but I think the ad hoc committee, from my understanding, was to address the immediate concern. Concerns on infrastructure, I mean, we just had a smaller infrastructure council that we were trying to get members of the public there to kind of see what their concerns were too, and address the different needs that we've seen coming up in the next 5 to 10 years. In regards to North School, I went through a lot of the paperwork. I still have some questions. I've yet to find any documentation about any kind of testing that's been done in those buildings, and the buildings are currently in use. So, I would still have some questions about that if we're talking about population. But as far as I'm aware, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, I thought the main focus of the ad hoc committee was to address the immediate concern that heat can kind of break down at any moment, and we're going to be in a really bad spot if we don't have a middle school facility.
Excuse me? Jump.
Thank you. So I was waiting for everybody to finish this. I just wanted to clarify. So this all came about because we do have superintendent and I, with the finance team on both sides, we meet, and then we have quarterly meetings with the chair people of each committee, just to have an open dialogue, discuss all our issues. And I know the superintendent was at the last meeting, but she was at all the previous ones. And typically what we have is we just have general conversations, talk about outstanding issues that we might have on the town side, issues that are outstanding on the, or concerns that they may have on the school side, and we really kind of go back and forth on how we're going to address some of these issues. A lot of the times, the school department comes to us looking for guidance in terms of what they're going to do. So you're not wrong when it came to the discussion about the heating system, but the recommendation which I put forth for an ad hoc committee or some type of group, whether it's a liaison, was to truly identify a group that would be able to have a conversation that would be a representative from the Board of Selectmen and from the school department to really look at these capital needs, because it's not just the heating system. We're also discussing crowdingness of the schools, and I don't have the entire list, but I know we've got roofs that have been put in place, patched to some capacity. I've going on 11 years, and it predates me, so I know there's probably some need to replace roofs. So it was really just to begin that dialogue on prioritizing significant capital needs, what that looks like, and how do we agree, right, a mutual agreement on what those priorities look like so that we can support that, especially knowing what we have seen in the past 2 town meetings, that we need to be able to come to town meeting with a consensus, all on the same page, to identify these capital items, because we are not getting the support anymore When we start looking at just solely getting, new police vehicles, that was a close vote. I think that only passed at town meeting with 2 votes. So we just need to change our strategy, and part of this conversation was really trying to bring the 2 groups together and act like a capital improvement committee to make sure we're all on the same page. Because much like the discussion we just had with DBW, the school, at least the superintendent, is in this quagmire where they're putting patchwork on a heating system over at the Hurley, not knowing if the intent is to build a new school, not build a new school. Because what you don't want to have happen is, if the intent is to build a new school, you don't want to throw all this money, good money, at bad money, just constantly going just to have that building demoed. If the intent is to live within that building, then we need to change the strategy. But I think those conversations truly need to take place either with liaisons or an ad hoc committee to really kind of have those thorough conversations so that we're all on the same page, as opposed to, the school committee doing it and then bring it to the board of selectmen. The selectmen have a lot of questions that we have 1 or 2 people that are intimately involved in those discussions with representatives from the school side and the town side to really make sure we're on the same page and see how that fits on into with DPW, South End Fire Station, Library, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, because it's a lot of large capital needs that are going to be coming down in a very short period of time, and we just need to make sure that we're addressing it. And we've been talking about this heating issue for quite some time, but from an administrative standpoint, and I don't want to speak for the superintendent, but on our side, it's hard to make these decisions if we don't truly know what direction we're going in, right? So I think that's been really the challenge, and I don't have the authority, and the chairman of the board happens to be Michelle. It was Justin prior to that, Mr. Haley before that. When we were having these conversations, we couldn't really commit and give a direction to the school committee or the school department in terms of which way to go, because we just don't have that authorization. So I thought that this probably made the most sense to try to get everybody to the table, start having those organic conversations and get those conversations rolling so that we can make some significant progress. And we know one way or the other, good, bad, or indifferent, whether we agree with it or disagree with it, what direction we're going in. Because I know at the last meeting, Ryan was talking about a repair to the heating system that was going to cost about $300,000, right? So when we start looking at these costs, it's not short money. And it truly is only a patchwork. So that potentially could only last for, call it what you want, a year, maybe 2 years, not even a year, and we're just throwing good money after bad, and we need to kind of figure that out. So yes, it's the Hurley School, but it's also the roofs, windows, all the school buildings that we have, and other capital needs, that large capital needs that the school department has, and trying to come up with a plan to fit it into the total capital plan that we have. So that was where my recommendation was coming from, so I just want to throw that out there.
Chair. So, to build on Mr. Kadim here, my first reaction in hearing this ad hoc committee and the heating system is an emergency is, can we just make a decision already? If we want to get it fixed, let's get it fixed. We've been listening to us. We've been doing this since the current superintendent's predecessor was here, and it was urgent then. Just put the damn thing on a warrant article and let's get it done. Back then, it was $6 million. Actually, $3 million. So here we are, 15.
Whatever it is,
Right,
even
right.
if we were going, even if us were going to go in the direction of a new building, it still has to be fixed.
No question, I'm not done yet. So, but the point being, here we are, and now listening more to it, my reaction goes the other direction. I think there is a need for an ad hoc committee, because board chairs and committee chairs come and go. Hopefully, superintendents and town administrators don't come and go, because they're the lone consistent person that should be involved. Okay? Just a hint, that's all. But the point being, you've got to have a couple of people, the stakeholders from the board of selectmen or the select board and the school committee. We are the town leaders. We have the 2 biggest budgets that we are in charge of here in the town. We are understanding what the direction is. There has to be 2 members from each having a conversation and deciphering it. In now almost 6 full years of doing this, it has been one-sided. Just select board is sat and it's listening to one-sided reports from school committee, and everybody can take it for what it's worth. They could disbelieve what it is for what it's worth. But if the select board does not have members involved in that process, there's no buy-in. They're going to believe what they want to believe no matter what you want to present. Hate to say it. I've seen it. So I think you need to have an ad hoc committee, and you get 2 views from each board and committee, because guess what? 2 members from the select board are not always going to agree. 2 members from the school committee are not always going to agree, right? So it's going to be good to have. And go get a tiebreaker in the middle if that's what you need. And that should be an independent resident. But I think you need to do that, and I think at the end of the day, you're going to Mr. Kadim's point, it's not just what's going on over there at schools. We got DPW here, right? How do we sell that? With a $15 million boiler. So we got a lot. There's a lot to get done. So we actually all need to understand this and work together on it. So these studies, there will be plenty of questions for whoever's going to sit on that committee. There's no question about it. But there was then too. But I think you need to have the ad hoc committee and just move forward with it, because now you get buy-in from both parties.
Do you want to say anything? You're sitting there just...
Truly, we're just here to answer questions if you have them. Our understanding from the last joint meeting was that the select board was looking for some time to determine how you'd like to proceed. The school committee will be meeting on Monday night as a full committee. So the 4 of us were just here in an advisory capacity if there was anything we could follow up with, since we had provided the MSBA materials, some other information when last we saw each other. But it felt like there was discussion within this group about what you want that committee to look like and what the specific charge of the ad hoc committee would be. So if this group comes up with material from, an answer to those 2 that we can then bring back to school committee on Monday, we would welcome the opportunity to come see you as a full board sometime in February or March, to be invited to one of your meetings if you'd like, to proceed from there. But that's what we were bringing tonight. I'll pass it to Ms. Rizzo if she has anything to add.
I would second what Superintendent Kidwell said. That's how I also felt. I mean, Mr. Sullivan also spoke at our meeting when we invited you, and thank you all for coming. Just having some time to kind of digest and figure out what that direction would be, and then we'd be happy to, like Superintendent Kidwell said, we'd be here tonight to help answer any questions that you may have, and then just, from there on out, trying to find a path forward.
I don't think it's going to reach me. Mr. Sullivan, I agree with you 100%. I've only been here on the board for a little over a year. I was going to meetings since COVID. I saw what it was like before communication-wise. That's something I've always wanted to see, is more communication with you on board so we can work together as a team. I think this is the greatest approach towards that. So that way we can all kind of come together and see the data for what it's worth, hand in hand. So.
Don't ever think that just because we have our separate committees that you can't come before us anytime, please. I mean, you're always welcome here. I'm sure we're always welcome there. I mean, lots of times we do things separate because you're dealing with the schools, we're dealing with the town. So, I mean, don't ever think that we wouldn't put you on an agenda right away. That's not a... So what do the members of the committee think? Do we want to form an ad hoc committee? It sounds to me that we not only need we need a capital improvement committee is what we need.
Yeah, that's what I was just writing down here because.
Did you?
I did, because we've lost members of the capital improvement committee. They were down to like 1 or 2 members, which is not enough for a quorum. And I mean, that is something that is like in our, I don't know if it's in the charter or the bylaws, but like we're supposed to have one and we don't. And I back to all these open positions on all these committees, we really need to do something to get people on, especially this committee. I mean, this is a big committee. They're part of our quad board, and that's 2 years now. I've been to quad board meetings, and we've had no presentation from the presence from the capital improvement committee because they don't have a quorum. So
That's because during the charter review, they talked about getting rid of the capital improvement committee, so everyone jumped ship.
Well,
I'm
the
against
thing,
that,
the
but-
thing is, because we don't have a capital improvement committee,
But we should be drumming up. Well, my
And-
point to that was we really need to be drumming up business for that. And that's something
I-
that has come up multiple times that we said we were gonna try and do something to bring that up. But I didn't want to jump on you because
No,
you
no,
started
no.
to say something about capital improvement committee, but I just don't want to be in another boat where we are, where we've got a report from, like we said here from 2018, that we're just getting a report. I mean, and nothing happens. And it seems like we keep having committees and we keep coming up with reports and feasibility studies and all this, and nothing happens. So I don't want to waste people's time going through an ad hoc committee meeting and if nothing's really going to be done. So,
At the end of the day, waiting for capital improvement committee volunteers to step forward is not going to address today's problems either.
They won't, you're right.
So, and we've,
But it's
in the past, what this board has had to do is step up when committees have run short and
Right.
around town. Zoning, planning.
I agree with you,
right?
100%.
So at some point, we still got to deal with today's issue. And today's issue is, do you do an ad hoc committee and what's it going to do? Now, if what we could say, and it really is just, it's going to boil down to, the ad hoc committee is going to have to come back and say, hey, here's our recommendation. I mean, at this board, and the school committee as well, can put warrant articles out there. It's up to the Board of Selectmen to put the warrant article on the town warrant. If you want to take the report and throw it in the trash and do nothing with it, well, then that's on this board or that's on their committee. So, you're not putting an ad hoc committee together for no reason, only unless you already intend on not taking the recommendation and doing your own thing anyway. So if you're going to take the recommendation or deliberate over the recommendation and say, we're going to take 1, 2, and 3, and this is how we're going to approach it, whatever. But if you do nothing with the recommendations, that's on this board.
well, speaking about this ad hoc committee, I don't know if it's possible, we should establish our own capital improvement committee for the town, including the schools, the whole town, the town buildings and everything, because we don't have that. I'm sure there's people here, there, and everywhere that are doing studies on their buildings or whatever, but just a committee for the schools, to me, it doesn't go far enough. We need a capital improvement committee for the town. Somebody from the school committee, somebody from the Board of Selectmen, somebody from planning, and however many, maybe somebody from the town, and then another committee that is interested, well, probably DPW, only because they know a lot about every building in town. So, because we need capital improvement not only for the schools, but for other buildings too. So, I wouldn't want to slight the rest of the buildings in town.
So just, I guess just to that point, so we do have a capital improvement committee, it's just not, we don't have volunteers that are willing to serve on it. So, and I know we can try to go out there, we can continue. I mean, we had committee chairmen come before us, explain things. The reality of the situation is that there are less and less people who are looking to volunteer their time to serve on committees. So we're not neglecting the capital items. We're doing it internally on our side. The schools are doing it on their side. I think it was just an opportunity to make sure that this board and the school committee were on the same page, because at the end of the day, a capital improvement committee is just an advisory committee. They're making recommendations based on what we're submitting to that committee after review, coming back to the board. So if the board and/or the school committee are not on the same page, it's all for naught, right? Like, we need to be able to make sure that, and if we don't want an ad hoc committee, I mean, myself and the superintendent can put together a team to work together. It's just, we're doing double duty, and we're not having people that are actually partaking and really involved in the process. And then there's a whole lot of questions, and, we're going back and forth. And so we just want to make sure that it's open and transparent. We've got that partnership that's coming forward and moving it to make sure, because again, I don't disagree. We've been talking about these issues for over 5 years, and we're still not seeing anything addressed. And I know just based on conversations with this current superintendent, she is truly, and always has been, is an individual who's looking to accomplish things. And so she needs direction, and sometimes it's difficult for me not to be able to give her the direction that she needs. You're in on those meetings. You see that. So we're just trying to figure out how we can better operate with the uncertainty that we're dealing with, so that we can plan and manage appropriately, so that we're using taxpayer monies efficiently, and if we've got to go out, and part of this is looking at additional grants to help support some capital items, but without knowing what direction we're going in and having input and buy-in from both groups, it becomes a challenge for us.
I know where I'm at, so I think you set up the ad hoc, you go 2-2, and maybe it is you, and I think Mr. Gadeen makes a good point, you pull in, Mr. Cabral, or, from DPW, because he's going to be the most familiar, and he can work with Mr. Roy on the school buildings, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we would definitely have some support for the committee, like we do with the Medeiros Farm, or the building committees, DPW. So it'll be somebody on our side will be myself, obviously the finance director, and then whoever we're talking about, Dave, if we're talking buildings at that time. I'm sure the schools would do the exact same thing and make sure Mr. Roy was involved.
And I'm sure we have one resident out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have plenty that like to criticize everything that we're doing and how we're spending, so I think we got to have at least one resident that would want to step up and be a part of this committee and have a say, and say, because they're going to be the ones that are going to say, and I think, quite honestly, hold the most weight.
Or then have more than one, and do 3. Do whatever it is to get your odd number for a vote, or I don't know if you need an odd number or whatever it is, but,
Maybe if we want to if we do 5, and I'm not trying to add any further ones, but we can include somebody from Finance Committee, because I think they should be part of it as well. And then
don't disagree.
We do have, I believe, 2 members who are interested in, who are on the Capital Improvement Committee that just can't meet.
they should be,
So
yeah.
we can potentially pull one of them into this ad hoc committee, so that there's.
I lost track in the middle there. 5, you mean 2 from here, 2 from school
I'm
committee,
sorry, I
1
was
from
off.
FinCom.
Yeah.
That's okay. I was like,
Well,
5 residents. We just said we had no residents.
Even
now.
if we do one.
Yeah, it's up to 7.
Ms. McNamara made me promise to take notes. Let me try again. 2 from here, 2 from school committee.
I need to go to remedial math.
Yeah.
So either we do 2 from each committee, or 1 from each committee, and then a member. I think just listen, the smaller the committee, the better. Committees tend to drag on some of the work, so if we can kind of keep it small, I'm just trying to get good representation to make sure FinCom, Capital, and then potentially a resident.
Yeah, so maybe you're at 1, 1, and 1.
Right.
Right, so I think that's.
Well, it's good, because not everybody has to be a voting member either. We can have advisories, like Mr. Cabral was an advisor on the Senior Center Committee, so he wasn't a voting member, but he was at every single meeting.
So the last ad hoc committee had a teacher from each school, Aiken, Martin, Board of Selectmen member, 2 from the school committee, some parents, capital improvement, a regular resident, and the superintendent. Because you're talking about a big dollar decision here. $15 million for a boiler, or $300 million for a new school.
I promise you, it's not going to cost $300 million.
Wow.
I was going to say, don't.
I'm thinking,
I promise.
We don't want to see that number either.
Yeah, that's.
if you've been to East Providence, Attleboro, it's realistically in the 200s.
Yeah, but they're cities. Remember, they're cities. We're a town.
Okay, well,
So I think the bigger issue.
but to get your draw
For
of,
me, with the ad hoc committee, if you don't have a targeted purpose, then you're just all over the spectrum, right? So I see the need for the other stuff. To me, the ad hoc committee, because I agree with Mrs. Sullivan, it was just as easy as for us to put a warrant article together for $27 million for new heating system. Let's just do it. Let's just let it rip. But we've seen the climate in the town right now in terms of spending money. So for me, the ad hoc committee was more looking at what are our options, because as of the previous couple meetings, we've been told that there's potentially an option for renovation, looking for renovation assistance through the state. And it's not really called renovation, I believe, but we could potentially do.
Core project.
Yeah, core project. Do the windows and doors and do the heating system together, and perhaps instead of just spending just $27 million for heat, let's say the project is more closer to 50 or 70, but we get something back from the state to make it worth, the extra push to get more done, or whether it's repairing the roof. To me, that was what the ad hoc committee was to do, is to look at it, what can we make out of this? Can we make a better pathway than just saying, we'll put $27 or $15 million down on a warrant to fix the heat? Is it feasible, like you had said earlier, Mrs. Hines, are we gonna get a new building up before the heating system goes down? I don't think so. So I think we're doomed to repair that heat regardless of whether our future method is to build another school. Again, I just see that as a separate conversation that still needs to be had too. To me, it was just more so determining what are we gonna do about the heat, which path are we gonna pick? And what one will get the town on board. And I think having members of the town there is perfect, because that's gonna give us that insight as to what they're thinking, and then they can go back out and spread it amongst other members of the town and get the message out.
Well, I can understand you want an ad hoc committee to help your needs, but I have expanded it a bit, and we need to take a look at the whole town. So I was thinking of a committee for the capital improvement committee, whatever you call a committee, to include the two people if they still want to be part of it, somebody, and somebody from all the corresponding committees. To me, that'd be much better, because we'd have everybody on board, because unfortunately, your buildings are not the only ones that need to have repairs or additions or whatever, or a new building. So I think a committee that's going to look at all town buildings, to me, would be more beneficial than, I just think would be more beneficial.
I
That's
agree.
my opinion.
I agree with you.
I think there's some value in it. I think you got to give the committee when you walk into it, because it's a pretty daunting task when you start talking about all the different projects, right? I mean, we see what the list is from the schools alone now. I know the capital improvement list that Mr. Kadim keeps, for the town, and how it's all been laid out over the years, is a good starting point. But I think you need,
all has to work together.
it does have to work together, but you have to also give the initial scope for the ad hoc committee and say what needs to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years. Start with the school buildings and start with the town buildings and the top priorities, right? And then you can start looking at some of the others, because the useful life and all that other stuff is tracked very well on Mr. Kadim's and, capital improvement sheets, at least from the town side. Right, so, and I think the school buildings, I think, were included, if I remember, some of the school work was included on those, as I remember from that. So there's plenty of good, jumping points, but I think you give the ad hoc committee and say, we need to know what's going on in the first 2 or 3 years, and get back to us ASAP, because that's that's got to be the decision being made, right? If you got a heating system that's getting ready to fail, hopefully later, before we can get this, so we can get this done, right? Just my thought.
Well, that's my thought on the whole thing. Is everybody good here as far as what we're thinking? Well, I was thinking. I mean, I know Mr. Kadim keeps up with all the capital improvement, but this is actually would help you, Mr. Kadim, if we actually have a committee to get together and help, and we're all together. You're with us, we're with you, all town buildings.
So is there a consensus that an ad hoc committee could be useful, and that ad hoc committee would consist of 5 members, and one coming from the select board, one from school committee, one from FinCom, one from capital improvement, and one resident? I think that's the important part that the schools need to walk away from here tonight, and we need to be able to walk away from, because at an upcoming meeting, pending approval on their side, if they're on board with it, they're going to need to nominate and put somebody on that ad hoc committee, and we're going to have to go through the same process. So I just don't want them to walk out of here and then we're still left with nothing, right? So
I agree with that list, with the knowledge that they know that they could always bring in people as consultants like Mr. Cabral and Mr. Roy and whoever else is needed.
okay.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Well,
Good.
you don't have to tell me you're good. You're going to bring that back to the school committee. I understand that. I get the whole thing. I understand that. I understand where you're coming from, but I just don't want to just form one committee for the school. I think the whole town, I know the capital improvement stuff has been handled by our town administrator's office and us when it comes this far, and I think it'd be a big help, and hopefully if everybody knows that every department is working together and we have our capital improvement, Seekonk capital improvement list that includes everybody, hopefully it'll be an easier presentation, because then we will all back each other up.
Did you say the two people from the Capital Improvement Committee as well?
No, just one.
Just one.
Oh, but he did say somebody from the Capital.
Yes.
Improvement.
Oh, yeah.
Right, just making sure.
Yeah,
so
we
4
need
committees
to.
plus a
Plus the
resident.
resident at large, okay.
Yeah, we need to include them because they've
Yep,
been hanging
all right.
on those. We could, I mean, the second person could always come.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
And other people can always come too. And a resident's gonna come.
well, the meeting
And
should be,
volunteer.
they should be open meetings anyways, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They can post them, but they don't, because your ad hoc committee comes with certain stipulations that they don't necessarily have to be an open meeting, if I remember correct, right?
Excuse me, if they're appointed by you, they do.
If they're appointed by
Yeah.
us.
If they're appointed by me, if it's organized by me, then they don't.
So
But
what would this,
if it's an
Wait.
elected body, then
what
you
would
gotta,
this be considered?
it would be.
An elected
yeah.
body or appointed body?
An
Yeah.
appointed body?
Appointed
Yeah, so it's
body,
almost like a subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah. It should be open meetings anyway, and I mean, we could, we'll figure out, once we got enough people, they can apply, advise you too, the school committee and us, and we, kind of get together with names and get that going quickly so we can move forward.
Yeah, and I think accountability is on the, on the agendas for each of the board meetings, right? And keep this process moving. So once the committee gets set up, school committee, or whoever your liaison on this ad hoc's gonna be, that's who you gotta report back as does the select board, like we have in the back of our liaison reports.
Yeah, like we did on some of the committees I've been on, once the committee is formed and everything, the representatives are given permission from this, to bring the information back to their boards. Without having, all the members there, you can bring back like what happened at the last meeting or whatever. So that way, all the ones that are televised, everybody sees. I mean, some people only watch the school committee, some people only watch us, so everybody will be, informed as we keep going. If, when you go back on Monday, this is all good. What time does your meeting start on Monday?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, like ours. Okey dokey.
Just
That's
wanna
the
share that-
27th.
That is the 27th. I just want to share that the school committee does also have on their agenda for Monday night a consideration of the statement of interest submission for a core project, as Mr. Juckett described, which
Great.
is not limited to new build. It is new build or renovation. But that vote would be the first step, and then we would need a vote from this group as well. And then we would be charged with writing our 100-page term paper sometime before April to submit that application. So.
I know you're already working on that.
Confident in
Don't
you.
tell me. I know.
It's been
I
dra- it
know
was
you're already
drafted a
working
while
on
ago.
that. Okay, are we all good here? Everybody's good?
Good?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Nice
you
to
very
see
much for coming in.
you.
Sorry we had to keep you so late. We tried to talk fast. Doesn't always happen. Okay, we have a second quarter budget presentation.
Okay. So fiscal year 2025 budget to date is balanced with no major issues. Salaries continue to trend below budgeted forecast. Expenses are trending below target for quarter two overall. And this is despite managing the two unbudgeted judgments that we received during the fiscal year. And then our revenues are trending ahead of budget projections. For the assessor's update, slide hasn't changed much. The average residential value for FY '25, as the board is aware, is $521,924. That's compared to $494,807 from fiscal year '24. Our new growth number, budgeted at $600,000, was certified by the Department of Local Services at $685,612. So that's an increased revenue number for us by $85,000. The tax recap, the classification was held on November 13th. The board did approve the tax factor. The recap was submitted on November 14th and approved by the DLS on November 21st. So just as a reminder for those folks watching, the FY '25 residential tax rate is now $12.35 per thousand. The commercial and industrial tax rate is $26.35 per thousand, and then personal property tax rate is $26.31 per thousand. Treasurer's Office insurance, the workers' comp FY '24 audit was complete. The annual HERD, which is the health insurance responsibility disclosure, was completed and submitted. That deadline was due December 15th. So for those folks that are not familiar with that, it's just a requirement to ensure the level of the employer level information from the health insurance is sent over to the state so that they can see the values associated with our health insurance, and for those that are eligible for Mass Health, to see that we do offer comparable health insurance for those folks that do qualify. The gag clause prohibition compliance attestation is a new requirement that was completed and submitted. That due date was December 31st, and this just is a sign-off confirming that we are restricting the sharing of cost and quality care information to anybody. For payroll, salary tables were updated for the clerical union, which was approved at November town meeting. The Treasurer's Office processed the retro pays and then also handled the OPEB contributions, which were paid by the employees and deducted from their paychecks. The Treasurer's Office processed 8 new full-time hires, 2 new part-time hires, and then 2 full-time terminations. Those terminations were retirements, disability retirements. Preliminary work was done on the W-2s for both the town and the schools. W-2s for the town are 299. The schools have 500. For the collector's office, disposal bills, 201 accounts took advantage of that half-pay option out of a total of 5,339, so roughly 3.7%. Those that did pay half have until March 31st to pay the remainder. The FY '25 actual real estate and personal property bills, the collector's office worked with the assessor's office to test and complete the actual billings that went out for December 31st, and duplicate bills were printed and mailed to all those new owners for the properties. Tax title update, real estate tax title. We have 53 parcels currently in tax title. That's down 5 parcels from Q1. We still have 4 active payments. We have 4 parcels that have been acquired through tax title, and then we have 20 cases that are still moving through the land court. Moving on to our revenue. So I know I said our revenue numbers were on target. When you look at the real estate number, the number there says below target, so this is just a snapshot at the end of December. We've collected year-to-date $23.7 million rounded up. That's a collection rate of 47.2%, so that's below our target. This is solely a timing issue, so the payments did not post until January. So looking at the first week of January, we were at 49%, so that brings us right to the target number. Just as a rule of thumb, we budget 100% of the real estate taxes revenues coming in when we look at our forecasting. But reality shows that 98% is collected, is usually where we hover around, with 2% going into tax title. So eventually we do collect that money, but right now we're on target. For our personal property, the commitment was $3.8 million, year-to-date $1.9 million, so it's a 49.3%. We're above target there. Our motor vehicle excise tax slightly below the target number, so we're scheduled to be about 15%. Our commitment is $2.9 million, We've year-to-date collected $326,000. Our largest commitment, as the board is aware, is in February, so those numbers will jump up in the February or the third quarter commitment. Meals tax continues to be strong, which is pretty impressive when you start looking at the local economy. The commitment is $620,000. Year-to-date, we've received $382,679, collection rate of 61.7%. Again, hotel tax, very similar situation, $850,000 committed, collected $581,870, which is 68.5%. And then our marijuana retail tax, the local option, the commitment was $637,000. Year-to-date receipts coming in at $450,168, so that's also above target. I'm going to have to talk off my slides on this one. So it's not that good.
Yeah,
So the highlighted red, so again, as I mentioned before, both expenses and salaries trending in the right direction. The first red column there is under education. So again, what's driving that number is that we did pay our assessment for Bristol Aggie in the first month of the fiscal year, so that's driving that. So that's 100% paid. So all we're paying now is the Tri-County assessment. And then the next red box is other environmental, which is conservation agent. So that's slightly up, 55.2%. The budget is a low budget, but the prior conservation agent's buyback hit July. She ended in June, but the actual buyback didn't hit until this fiscal year, so that's what's driving that number. And then debt and interest, that's on budget, but when you're looking at percentages, just showing it higher. We made our large investment payment in the beginning of the fiscal year, so we still have some other payments that need to be made, but that's on target as we expect. And then the other fixed costs, what's driving this 66.9%, is the fact that we do pay our pension in advance. So the first month of the fiscal year we pay so that we are not charged any interest. And then the judgments that I had spoken about, $448,000 has been paid out of this account as well. So we do anticipate, obviously, transfers coming out of that because of the judgments, but we do have faith that we'll be able to make internal transfers without having to go to town meeting. The next slide is just the salary graph that's just showing that the salaries are below our projected budget forecasts. So quarter two, $863,000 below our projections. Next slide is just a graph for our expenses. We're at $258,000 below our second quarter. And again, that's even with those judgments that have been incorporated. And then I'll open it up to any questions.
I have one question,
Yep.
maybe just a statement, I don't know. The trash, second half payment, that was the one that was not gonna be sent out reminders for, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So just a reminder for everybody who is listening, that if you are one of those 201 accounts that opted for the half-pay option, it is due, as Mr. Kadeem said, March 31st, and there will be no reminder coming.
We can put something on social media, though, as a reminder that way.
We can.
All right, I'm just thinking.
A reminder.
as the non-reminder.
No mailed, you will get no mailed reminder.
snail mail,
Nothing
just-
in your mail.
Right.
Snail mail as a reminder. That's all I have.
Social media is free.
Is it?
Is it? Yeah. Everybody else? Oh.
I just have a quick question. Going to the marijuana retail tax.
Yep.
It just led me to also want to ask you what the status update is. We have some HCA's that are still sitting out there.
Yep.
There were obviously some sums of money that were attached to all that, and it's been put on pause about 4 months ago, 5 months ago. Remember Mr.
Yeah.
Bransky was in here and
it's a little
did
bit-
a renewal, so like for one client, but then there was like bigger issues, so.
Yeah.
Where are we in that process? Because I know that there's still, that could change some of these numbers a little bit too.
So the regulations have changed, and originally the marijuana companies across the Commonwealth stopped paying for the impact fee.
Yep.
Because they knew the regulations from the CCC were coming out. Subsequently, and I forget the community, I think it was Haverhill, took one of their companies to court, and the court rules that the CCC did not have the authority to retroactively impact those HCA's. So we have reached out to KP Law, and since we only received partly, at that one time, we only had one facility that was actually operational. The other one was still being built. But we have had conversations about what our options are to enforce that so we can collect the community impact fee. Moving forward, we won't be able to have the community impact fee.
Right.
But I do have a call. I had to get some information over to KP, scheduling a call for next week with myself, Chris Testa, and Jen Argo to discuss what our options are. The other thing that we did determine as part of the HCA, there was also commitments from both groups, and they did it differently, but they were also going to provide money for community benefits. So Solar Therapeutics was talking about donations to nonprofits. So we've never received that or received any indication that they have done that in the community. So that's part of the conversation we also are going to have. And there's no direct benefit to us on that one. I believe now Metro Harvest, but now Northeast Alternatives, their commitment, I believe, was a canine dog, or funding of a canine dog. So that's going to be included in the discussion that we have in the letters that are potentially going to go out. So.
Okay. All right.
So we're hoping we can recoup that. But what I will say is we did not include that in the FY25 budget as revenue. So anything that we do collect,
It's bonus.
Yeah. So
That's fine. I just didn't want, I know there's extra resources there that were due.
yeah, and the attorney we're talking to from KP, she's actually like the state guru. She's been following the legislation and has given a number of speaks and discussions throughout the Commonwealth with regard to the guidelines and new regulations that came out from the CCC. So,
Okay. Otherwise, nice job on the budget as always.
thank you.
Okay, then, everybody good? Okay. The next is consider the approval of the October 30th, 2024 minutes. I'd take a motion to indefinitely postpone, because I don't know about you, but I didn't get mine.
I didn't get
I didn't get mine either.
All right, so we're gonna,
So moved. To
okay.
postpone.
Second? Somebody got a second?
Second.
Okay, we're going to indefinitely post, I got a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, good. Okay, community speaks. Anybody from the community who would like to say anything? Everybody good? Good, okay. Other business, discuss other topics not reasonably anticipated, and I do have one. Because I received a letter. Did everybody get this letter from Kristen LaRue? In your email today? No. No? Okay. Well, let me read it to you. This is in reference to early voting for the town election April 7th, 2025. As you are aware, the annual town election is scheduled for April 7th, 2025 from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. At this time, I am requesting direction from the board as to the following. Ballots be mailed only to absentee voters. Ballots be mailed to absentee and vote by mail voters. And early in-person voting, if the board does request early in-person voting, I would request the following schedule. Monday, October 20, that's not right.
She probably didn't change the date.
Those dates aren't right. But anyway, for 5 days from, as the town hall, the early voting is always here at town hall. During the past several elections, excluding presidential, Saturday voter turnout has been dismal. It will cost approximately $1,680 for election workers to work early voting, which is 5 days, Monday through Friday. I lost my place. To mail the ballots to absentee and vote by mail voters, it will cost approximately $500 to $1,000, depending on how many people request them. Since we currently only have one board that is contested, which is the Water Commission, I don't anticipate a large turnout. Please be advised these figures are only for early voting. It does not include ballot printing, coding of memory cards, election workers for the day of the election, food costs, police detail, etc. Since the town clerk will not be in for several weeks, she would like to discuss this. She would like us to discuss this and let her know so that her office can schedule election workers and schedule the election. So basically, this being a town election, she wants to know if we want her to handle it like she always handles every general election that we have, or do we want to do something a little different than this? So,
My personal opinion?
Yes.
I think we give the voters as many opportunities as they can to vote, and if it means mailing them out, that's what we've been doing. I think that we should continue to do what we've been doing.
okay,
Should we discuss this next meeting? Because you do have till February 14th to pull papers.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement with Pam, but if there's no contestant other than one, then I get where it doesn't make sense to spend the money. And I'm a big proponent of early voting. But if, say, by the next meeting, more people pull papers, more contested races, then I'd go back to the early voting. I mean, I just don't want to spend the money if there's no uncontested races, besides one water
do
commission.
you have an opinion?
Yeah, I think you wait till the next meeting. And she has time to make that decision.
She doesn't want to make the
No, we
decision,
make
she
the
wants
decision.
us to
Well,
make
I mean,
the decision.
That's, sorry. let me repeat that.
You have to wait till all the papers are in anyways before you can even print them, so.
Yeah, so-
Even if you wait till the February 5th or whatever the meeting is right before
The
they're
5th and-
due. I don't know, when is that?
Yeah, we have the 5th. and
Next
then-
is the 5th.
5th and 26th.
5th and 26th?
Right.
So nobody wants to make a decision now?
Yeah, just wait till the 5th is
My opinion is the same as yours. I think every election, whether it's local or federal, should be handled the same, give everybody the opportunity to vote.
I think that's part of the reason why our votes have been, the last couple of elections, we've been up there with the numbers, is because of the early voting, but this is my opinion.
Me too.
I
think
agree
it
with,
should
but if
just be
there's
handled the same.
uncontested, then I can understand.
But
it's not
I
worth-
don't, if there was nothing contested, I would say, well, then change it.
That's right.
But because there is something contested,
true.
and there could
I agree.
possibly be others contested, then that's my opinion. But if you want to put this off to February 5th, Sean,
Yeah.
okay,
'Cause you still have a race where somebody could withdraw their papers too.
that's true. Okay, so we'll continue this to February 5th, but seeing as I got it today, it falls within the 48-hour thing. Thank you. Moving right along. Town Administrator's Report. Have anything for us?
Nothing at this time.
Oh, come on.
I know.
Okay, Board of Selectmen Liaison Reports and Committees, accounts payable warrants have been signed. Thank you very much, folks. 540 Arcade Avenue should not be on there anymore because the committee's dissolved. TV9 Liaison Report, did you have a meeting? No?
Nope, they have a meeting on next Monday, 7 PM. TV9. So, stay tuned.
What's the date?
January 27th.
27th, at 7 PM, you said?
Yep.
7 PM, okay. Bristol County Advisory Board?
Nothing new?
Okey dokey. Madeiras Farm Committee report?
Also, meeting next Monday, January 27th, 7 PM here at Town Hall. At that meeting, they'll be reviewing the final recommendations, or getting all merged together into one plan to be discussed further. So we're going to, at the last meeting, everybody took a bunch of different ideas and merged them into one plan. So this is going to be the,
Where's it gonna be?
here at Town Hall.
Here, okay.
Here in the Select Board room.
Town Hall. Okay, so I'm asking you that because sometimes it was over at the senior center, so.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
good?
That's it.
Yeah. Seekonk Public Library feasibility study building assessment.
So the presentation of the report is currently scheduled to be on the Select Board agenda for March 12th. They was originally supposed to be by end of January, February, but it's been pushed out. So March 12th is their target right now.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, comments, Mr. Sullivan, anything?
Nope, all set, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zorro?
Yeah, Sean, can you look at with the public safety and DPW? I brought it up a few years ago, Commerce Way. when it gets busy around Christmas, they typically put up Jersey barriers across from Starbucks and the Kohl's entrance with Market Basket, and they're going to revitalize that whole thing. If they would make sense to permanently close it and then use that as a turning lane going left, they can extend the left turning lane, so it will accommodate more cars going left. I know during the pandemic, when Starbucks was really busy, they had a backup line all the way to Target. You still had people trying to cut through, and it was a disaster at that point. But I just see it with getting busy, with more stores going there, might get busy all the time. So if we can, if they want to shut that down to help alleviate traffic and people cutting through, if they're on board with that, whatever they think.
I don't know, do we have control over that road,
That's
or
our
is
road.
it?
It's our road.
Okay, just asking.
Yeah, that's why we put the Jersey
Okay.
barriers when it gets busy.
No, I remember
Christmas.
that, but I also know that I personally have dealt with the owner of that complex, and he's very, very good to, if it's the same gentleman that I talked to, he's very good to deal with, and he told the police department, whatever you need to do, you can do, just let me know.
Just trying to
So I
think
just
of,
wanted to know if it was town-owned or if that
yeah,
company owned it. Okay.
yep, just trying to think of best ways to handle traffic, less accidents, whatever, to get people in and out of that plaza.
Well, I understand that. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Good. Mrs. Posey?
Yeah, just one suggestion, or, and this is probably something that maybe has to go to the state because it's Fall River Ave, but a pedestrian crosswalk over where Crossroads is, people constantly crossing that road, from the people staying at the hotel, going across to get stuff. I know I've come off the highway, coming home from work numerous times, and people are darting out across. I cringe every time it happens, thinking there's going to be an accident, and if there's some way we could maybe petition the state or something to have them take a look at that and maybe put up a pedestrian crosswalk.
Yeah,
So-
we've tried a couple times. We actually, working with Rep. Howitt, we had DOT out there, but it was a little further up next to Greenbrier, because where the school buses
Yeah,
come
yeah,
up
yeah,
and the
yeah.
kids crossing over to that plaza. So we petitioned them to look at a crosswalk either there or somewhere
Yeah.
in that vicinity to help alleviate that. So we haven't heard anything back from them. I can reach back
Yeah,
out to.
especially that area where
District
they're
5.
basically people staying at the hotel and they're running
Yeah.
across to get stuff at the
Yeah, people have already
convenience
been
store,
hit,
and they're going
yeah.
back, and,
Yep.
yeah, and then some of them, a lot of them don't have, light-colored clothing on, and they're just running across, and it's been some close calls, and I've seen a few close calls, so.
Crosswalk and those, more lighting too, because, like you said, they don't wear,
Lighting would be a significant help in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
especially there where they're running back and forth.
So I got to ask, is it part of that study that they were doing anyways, Mass DOT, coming out of Greenbrier 2 and all that? with-
I've got to touch base with John Aubin, because I didn't want to say it, but I thought they had incorporated a crosswalk, but
That was a
that's
while
subject,
ago.
but that's subject on to the 40B getting done,
Okay.
so.
That's it, that's all I had.
Okay, I have a couple of things I'd like to thank and say kudos to the fire department, police department, DPW, everybody that was involved in the gas leak down in the south end. It was an incident that could have caused a lot of damage and injuries, and it was, as far as the information that I've received, it was handled well. I think state police, probably East Providence or Rehoboth, are also involved in that. They had to shut down a lot of roads for a little while, but even though it may have seemed like it was a long time for people that were waiting and wanting to go by there, it was significantly shorter than you'd think. And we're glad that, as far as I know, nobody got hurt, and I'm thrilled that, I'd like to thank everyone that participated in that and brought it to a very quick and smooth conclusion. Also, I'd like to say thank you to the snow plowers and DPW workers that handled this last storm. I know there are some people out there that weren't thrilled because it took their street a long time to be plowed, even though I can honestly say, I don't know when they plowed my street because they didn't set off my alarm, they didn't wake me up, so I have no idea when they were there, but when I got up, it was plowed, so I was happy. But I don't know, like I said, some people think they should be first. I don't, but I haven't seen or read too much where they weren't happy with what happened. I like to tell people that if there is a snow incident and you think it's getting later on in the day and your street hasn't been plowed, please call DPW and probably leave a message if somebody doesn't answer the phone about your street. But remember, it takes time to get all these, they do the main roads first and they do the secondary, so I think they did a great job. I hope everybody feels the same way. It was nice, it was on a holiday and the traffic was down, so thank you very much to everybody involved with that. And that's all I have. Is everybody good? Oh, good. I'll take a motion to adjourn till the next board meeting, Wednesday, February 5th at 7:50 PM to enter into executive session.
Not to reconvene.
Not to reconvene into open session. To conduct strategy sessions with respect to negotiations with the Assistant Superintendent of Public Works per Mass General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 21A2, as having the discussion in open session would be detrimental to litigation or bargaining position of the town, and to conduct strategy sessions with respect to negotiations with United Steelworkers Supervisors Unit Local 9517-09 per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, as having the discussion in open session would be detrimental to the litigation or bargaining position of the town, to conduct a strategy session with respect to negotiations with the Fraternal Order of Police, Mass Cop Local 215 per Mass General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 21A3, as having a discussion in open session would be detrimental to litigation or bargaining position of the town, to conduct strategy sessions with respect to negotiations with Seekonk Firefighters Union, IAFF Local 1931, per Mass General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 21A3, as having the discussion in open session would be detrimental to the litigation and bargaining position of the town, and to consider the approval of the executive session minutes of October 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any questions for anybody? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, sorry. Roll call vote.
Pam Posey, aye.
Justin Sullivan, aye.
Presor, aye.
Michelle Hines, aye. Good night.